Hi, and welcome to Host Chat, week number 5 for the I Am Statements of Jesus. This week, focusing on John chapter 15. But before we dive in, just want to say a couple things. First, once again, thank you so much for your willingness to host and attend a conversation. I hope this has been an enriching experience for you as well as for your groups. And so, once again, I am just very appreciative for your service to the Lord and to His church in this way. So, that's the first thing. Second is a calendaring one. Hard to believe we're already at week 5, and depending on your group's decision or your decision, might be week 5 of 6 or week 5 of 7. So, we really are in the home stretch. It's been encouraging to hear that one of the groups is already asking for an additional study guide to continue on after maybe a week or two break um, after Easter. So, if that is something that your group would want to do, please let me know. We're still wrestling with what we're going to do next and when the maybe next corporate small group experience might take place, but it would be fantastic if those groups would continue. Third, it would be great, once again, if you could just encourage your groups to participate in the Renovo Spiritual Health Inventory. I know some people had some technical issues, and we've reached out to them about that, but we really would love to um, get as many of our congregation to respond as possible. Ideally, we would like to hit the 65 uh, people mark, and if everyone in our small groups participated, we would almost automatically hit that mark. So please encourage your groups to do it, and if you could help maybe work through some of the challenges that they have. The gentleman that hosts it says that it is a better experience on a laptop or a desktop. I know some people have had some errors with it, so thanks again for that. So if you haven't decided what to do with your Holy Week meeting, now is really the time to kind of consider that, since as I record this, we're just 2 weeks, a little bit, a day more than 2 weeks away from Maundy, Thursday. So please do that. Now, we turn to John chapter 15. Chronologically, this is the last I am statement in the Gospel of John as it occurs in John 15. And we had one in John 14, so it is building on some of the imagery that's taken place, some of the, as the Father and I know each other, so I know you. There's going to be a little bit of that here as well, but also just that need to abide. And so Jesus gets out of the block and he first says, I am the true vine. It's not just that he's a vine, he's the true vine. And for first century Jews in particular, that would have been a very radical statement. What he's really saying is, I am the true Israel. Isaiah chapter 5 talks about the Lord planting his people as a vineyard and him tending them. If we were to read Psalm 80, especially verses 7 to 9, and then again, I think it's 14 through 19, you hear God coming to rescue his vine and sending the Son of Man, that amorphous Old Testament title that is frequently applied to Jesus, to come and rescue the vine. And so, uh, as we get it out of the blocks in verse 1, not only do we hear that he is the true vine, he's the true Israel, he's the true chosen one of God. Um, and the Father is the vine dresser. So the Father retains his gardener landowner role in Isaiah 5. And so part of that's part of what Jesus is saying. Question 2 is good for this whole thing. The center questions in the study guide this week, questions 2 through 5, are actually pretty strong. Um, Verse 2, we don't hear who the branches are yet, but we hear that the branches have kind of two outcomes and two realities. One is, if the responsibility is to bear fruit, and so if you don't bear any fruit, then you get lopped off, and if you even if you do bear fruit, you get pruned, that it might be more fruitful. And I think that's an interesting conversation. Question 3 is sort of focused on verse 2. A great conversation about our expectations in the Christian life and Jesus' expectations in them. Jesus wants to continue to transform us and shape us into his likeness, so that we can bring more glory to the Father, that we can bear more fruit, much fruit. All the time we hear those fruits, we hear more good works. Um, and notice that the process of that is going to be a little bit painful, or a lot painful. If we do not participate in the organic, life giving life of the vine and produce fruit, we run the risk of being lopped off. And we hear that frequently through the Old Testament, Ezekiel 15, and Psalm 80, as well as other places. Even in Holy Week, Jesus is going to curse a fig tree because it doesn't produce fruit. So that fruitfulness of God's people is throughout the Old and New Testament. And that's a really good conversation for your group to have. What are our expectations toward fruitfulness, and what are our expectations toward being shaped for greater fruitfulness? Because pruning is going to hurt. But pruning, if you'd ask any experienced gardener, really means that you lop off parts so that more growth can take place. The parts that are underperforming or haven't developed well. And that's what Jesus wants to do here. And so in verse 1 and 2, we get a really good picture of what the Christian life is supposed to look like. Verse 3 kind of strikes us almost as a non sequitur. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Probably the best reading on 3 is that one of the verses for prune is to cleanse, is to get rid of the dead and the broken and the things that are not producing. And part of what Jesus is saying in verse 3 is that if you've already been engrafted in me, if you're alive in me, my word made you initially clean. And much like when a plant first starts, the plant doesn't need immediate pruning, but over time, a rose bush or a fruit bearing tree needs to be pruned, right? So that's kind of what the metaphor is pointing to there. In verse 4, we now get instruction to abide. And question 4 is about fruit, and question 5 is about abide. Lots of good topic there to talk about with your group. The word abide actually occurs 10 times in the first 10 verses of this passage. Your study only says to go through 8, but if you were to go through 10, you pick up 3 more abides. And so I think that's a really good thing to discuss. What does it mean to abide, remain, be in? And then notice what he says: "Abide in me as I abide in you." So that same way, as a branch cannot bear fruit by itself. I think that's such a fantastic thing to remember. We can do a lot of things, but without being in Christ, we can do nothing lasting, eternal, or with eternal significance. And notice, unless it abides in the vine, that it can't produce fruit, and neither can you unless you abide in Christ. So the first secret to bearing fruit, and again, that's the purpose. That's the purpose that's going to be meted out in verse 8, is that for His glory we will bear much fruit. The first key to bearing fruit is to abide in the life-giving relationship with Jesus Christ. These are all organic metaphors, that it's not that you need to try harder, it's you need to let the life run through you. And so that connection to Christ is essential to bear good fruit. And verse 5 spells it out again. Notice the second time we get the I am the vine. And now it's specific. You are the branches. You, my disciples, are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, that same relationship from verse 4, he is the one that bears much fruit, and apart from me, you can do nothing. Again, you can do all sorts of things that don't bear eternal significance or eternal fruit, but you need to abide in him for that to happen. He just makes it very clear. Apart from him, we can do nothing kingdom building. We can do nothing that leaves an eternal print. We're just spinning our wheels in life if we do not have the life of Christ going through us. And then in verse 6, we hear about the non abiding life. If anyone does not abide, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. The branches are gathered and thrown into the fire and burned. Ezekiel 15 is a great passage that sort of talks about this metaphor. Frequently in the Old Testament, when the vine is mentioned in any sort of prophetic sense, it's that the vine has not been faithful, has not been fruitful. And so there's the question about whether that vine should remain or whether that branch should remain in the vine. And it really drives home the reality that at some level of fruitfulness is demanded by the Christian life. Some level of God's life working through us toward good works and being a blessing to others is a natural byproduct. And if that's not happening, it really begs the question if we are letting Christ's life go through us and if we are of any value. And that's really what he's saying. Non abiding in Christ in verse 6, it's worthless living. You're wasting time in the vine if you do not produce fruit and if you do not abide. Now, verse 7, it changes the metaphor a little bit. If you abide in me and my word abides in you. And so there's some good conversation about, especially if you're to read on through 9 and 10, uh, how this passage clarifies or defines what it means to abide. Now, notice here it's not only relationally in Him, but taking serious His word, letting His word abide in you. And if you abide in Him and His word abides in you, you can ask whatever you wish and it'll be done for you. Now, again, this is similar to the question we had last week about asking for anything clearly. It's in the context of relationship with Him and the corpus of His word. But verse 8 really says that this is all for a purpose. The purpose of the branches is to bear fruit, but the ultimate purpose is that we might bring glory to the Father. Jesus is unswerving in his desire to bring glory to the Father, and he wants us to know that if we connect to him in a life-giving relationship, that's going to be our purpose too. And the way that we do that is twofold. It is that we bear much fruit and we prove that we are his disciples. Notice there's that discipleship tie-in, that discipleship is not just a learning relationship. It is a fruit-bearing relationship with the Son, and that we might glorify the Father. If we were to continue in 9, we would see that just as the Father has loved me, picking up on that theme in 14:20, I have loved you, so abide in my love. And if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. So notice that by verse 10, keeping his commandments is part of the way that you abide. So we abide by staying in relationship with him in that life connection of having his life flow through us. We abide by taking his word serious. We abide by acting on that word and keeping the commandments. And he says, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. And then in verse 11, which again is beyond the scope of your study, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you and my joy may complete. Part of the reason I added these is that that purpose in 8 to glorify the Father, it also brings joy, not only to the Lord, but that we might experience the joy and have more complete joy. So a couple weeks ago, we were talking about I came that you might have life and have it to the full. And now he's come and he's telling these things that we might have joy to the full. And so just a great reminder, a great encouragement for the purpose of abiding, the purpose of producing good fruit, the purpose of even looking at our lives and some of the hard things that are going on and wondering if we haven't been pruned to bear more fruit. Why? Because it brings glory to the Father. It is what the Son came to do, and it allows us to have his type of joy in us and our joy to be complete. Great things to discuss this week. Fantastic passage. I pray for your groups. I pray that your discussions are going well. I rejoice that you are offering milestones for people in your group to see people whose faith has gone past theirs, that they might see a new mile marker and know that it's possible to get there. Thanks again. Take care and God bless.